and she addressed Stephanie White telling her she's the number one option, she's the priority of the team. Basically, Stephanie White is telling Kelsey Mitchell it's her team. It's your team, Kelsey.
Professional basketball is rarely undone by a lack of talent on the court. It collapses under the weight of unchecked egos in the locker room and a front office that cannot see the future coming. Right now, the Indiana Fever are sitting on a gold mine, holding the most powerful financial, cultural, and athletic asset women's sports has ever seen. They have a generational point guard who reshaped the global economics of the WNBA in less than 6 months. But if you look closely at the shadows forming around the organization, a chilling reality is beginning to emerge. A silent civil war is brewing behind closed doors. The architect of this looming disaster appears to be newly hired head coach Stephanie White, who is building a locker room hierarchy that sidelines a franchise cornerstone while elevating a veteran free agent. Mix in a league-wide fear of a devastating financial lockout, and the result is a perfect storm for a multi-million-dollar implosion. Today, we unpack the stunning confessions of Kelsey Mitchell, the questionable psychological maneuvers of Stephanie White, and the frightening truth of a league teetering on the edge of collapse. Welcome to the breakdown, where the politics of the hardwood are laid bare. To grasp the chaos infecting the Indiana Fever, you must first understand the WNBA's broader economic climate. We hear the bold public statements from the Players Association daily, demands for 30% of gross revenue, unwavering confidence, and defiant threats. But that performance is for the cameras. Behind the scenes, when microphones are off, fear is real. Players are staring down the possibility of a multi-million-dollar lockout without the financial safety net to endure it. In a revealing conversation on Lisa Leslie's podcast, Kelsey Mitchell inadvertently shattered the illusion of union invincibility, admitting that players are leaning heavily on off-season leagues like Unrivaled, not just to stay sharp, but because uncertainty surrounding the 2026 season has left them deeply uneasy. Listen closely, and you can hear the raw anxiety of a veteran expected to project strength, while the ground beneath the league quietly begins to shake.
So, I think the part that's, and I could be vulnerable and say this, and I know they wouldn't mind, is that we don't know what's going to happen. And so, because we don't know, I think we lean on each other in this unrivaled season more than we probably should have. But because the season is kind of in the air and the CBA is all in the air, it's like...
This is a massive, deeply damaging admission for the Players Association. When one of the league's premier scorers openly acknowledges that the season hangs in the balance and that players are clinging to one another amid uncertainty, billionaire owners are paying close attention. They now see the vulnerability, they sense the bluff, and they understand that players cannot afford to lose a season. The psychological burden of a looming financial crisis is driving athletes to seek stability wherever they can find it. And that craving for security is the precise weakness head coach Stephanie White appears to be leveraging to consolidate control of the Indiana Fever locker room. With a roster featuring Caitlin Clark, the offensive blueprint should be the simplest equation in modern basketball. Put the ball in the hands of the most dynamic perimeter playmaker of her generation, surround her with elite catch-and-shoot spacing, and let her dictate tempo. That is how defenses collapse, how open looks are created, and how championships are built in the era of pace and space. Yet Stephanie White is not installing that system. Instead, she seems to be orchestrating an old-school locker room power shift, sidestepping the young superstar and channeling her validation toward Kelsey Mitchell, an 8-year veteran whose game thrives on high-volume, isolation scoring. In that same interview with Lisa Leslie, the host praised Mitchell's vulnerability about the lockout fears, and in that moment, the tone shifted dramatically, revealing how quickly confidence gives way to concern when the harsh realities of the business come crashing in.
I like when you use the word vulnerable.
She definitely does not want a lockout. You could tell Kelsey Mitchell wants to
Vulnerability is a dangerous currency in professional sports. When a player feels uncertain about their financial future, contract security, and standing in the league, they become highly susceptible to a coach who steps in with promises of stability and importance. That is exactly what Stephanie White appears to have done. Mitchell disclosed a stunning detail about the Indiana Fever's internal hierarchy. For the first time in her 8-year career, she believes she finally has a coach who views her as the unquestioned priority. She didn't speak about moving off the ball to maximize Caitlin Clark's gravitational pull, nor did she mention sacrificing shot attempts for team efficiency. Instead, she made it clear that Stephanie White has effectively handed her the keys to the franchise, language that signals a dramatic and potentially volatile shift in power within a team built around a generational superstar.
It was the first time in my 8 years, and there's no disrespect to any coach, GM I had, like Steph, Lisa, like Steph was the first coach that I had in my 8.
She really believes in me. It was
She
an aha
really
moment.
believes in me. It was an aha moment. That single line should send shockwaves through anyone who understands the fragile chemistry of a professional locker room. For 8 years, Kelsey Mitchell has been a gifted scorer, but largely on struggling, lottery-bound teams where high volume and low efficiency were the cost of finding rhythm under a permanent green light. Now, by her own unfiltered admission, a new head coach has walked into Indiana, looked past a Rookie of the Year who shattered television records and global interest, and told a veteran isolation scorer that this is her team, a stunning organizational gamble with potentially catastrophic.
That was the first time I got dealt a hand where I got a coach that really Lisa, she believed in my abilities, and it made me feel like, I don't know.
She made me feel like
consequences. Mitchell went further, describing how Stephanie White's validation reshaped her entire mindset, saying the belief made her feel like she had superpowers. But when a player believes that structure erodes, extra passes disappear, weak side reads vanish, and offensive systems dissolve into hero ball, the double standard becomes impossible to ignore. When Caitlin Clark attempts deep transition threes or threads impossible passes, critics call it reckless. When Mitchell is empowered to dominate usage and fire from 30 feet, it's framed as liberation. 2 rule books for 2 ball handlers is not a championship formula. If this offense is built around Mitchell's isolation game, it risks neutralizing the once-in-a-generation playmaking that makes Clark the engine of a multi-million-dollar ecosystem. The timeline only deepens the intrigue. Stephanie White's swift exit from Connecticut, her rapid arrival in Indiana, and her immediate bond with Mitchell before free agency suggest a calculated effort to secure loyalty by promising primacy. Now, the Fever sit on a fault line, a validated veteran who believes she has unrestricted freedom, alongside a generational star who fuels the league's economic surge. If the offense sputters, if cold streaks collide with stubborn isolation, and if Clark is reduced to a decoy, fan backlash will be swift and merciless. This franchise cannot build a dynasty by elevating ego over evolution. Every rotation, every possession, every decision must amplify Clark's gravity, or risk igniting the very civil war